I want to thank everyone for coming, and it's great we see a whole bunch of new faces. So that's terrific with these three different presenters tonight. I do ask everyone who's new to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is the link there is in the chat room. I thank Epson, Photo Shelter, American Photography, Pro Photo Daily for always supporting us. I want to thank our three presenters tonight, which is Stefan Flake, Joe Patronite, not Patronite, sorry, and Jay Matt. And with that, Jay, take over. It's your screen. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
All right. Sorry about this. I got to get my notes up here. Aloha. I'm Jay, and that is both my name and the initial in my byline. Thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate this. And I'm talking to you from an environmental journalists, Society of Environmental Journalists annual convention at ASU. I'm a journalist and I'm a Zuma press photographer, but I'm a journalist who went to art school, the San Francisco Art Institute. And I come to making pictures from the point of view of a person knowledgeable about the history of photography and reasonably well-versed in photo theory and criticism. And that's where this highfalutin and yet still, I believe, incredibly important quote comes from. Barthes was a French semiotician and literary theorist, and he understood the power of a detail in a photo, whatever the detail might be. And that's critically important to me and my work. One of the principal stories that I cover is of global warming and its consequences. I worked for many years in architecture, which causes me, in part, to look at the systems impacts and causes of global warming, as well as its details. Every architectural problem is a systems problem. Every global warming story at some level is a systems story. Social systems, economic systems, language systems, systems of societal organization and hierarchy. You get the idea. But I'm going to start this back home in Honolulu before we get into the difficult stuff. I'm from here. I grew up very near where I made this picture. I'm the child of school teachers and a child of this place, a keiki o Ka'aina. I'm fascinated by tourists and their behaviors. Growing up on the border of Waikiki faded this. My goal when reporting from home is to complicate understandings of this place to outsiders who have often very fabricated understandings of Hawaii as merely a tropical vacation paradise. We are a complicated place and face all of the same problems you face on the continent, but with unique issues and circumstances high in the mix. Indigeneity, colonialism, complex ethnic social structures, our desirability to outsiders, all impact ordinary local folks' lives in Hawaii, too often at levels of basic survival. This thanks to our staggering housing costs, limited economy, and geographic isolation. Global warming's consequences are growing here, as everywhere. Last month saw an average daily temperature of 3.13 degrees Fahrenheit above normal March temperatures, and our precipitation amounts were 56 hundredths of a percent of normal levels. Attribution scientists have determined that every day's temperature in March was impacted by a strong global warming effect in Honolulu. It is much hotter here than when I was a kid. As is true of most places in the US, the infrastructure we have relied on is reaching the ends of its service lifetimes. The Kapahulu groin, shown here, was built in 1951, a component of the wholly artificial constructed beach system of Waikiki. Fittingly, kapuhulu translates as worn out soul. Okay, here we go. The less fun pictures now. 2019 was a big year for young people concerned about the global warming crisis. It seemed to me that making the best chance of headway in pushing American society to care about global warming lay in the moral authority of those who would reap the climatic whirlwinds we had sown, kids. I'm not sure today if my assessment was naive or if it was just that the coronavirus pandemic's disruption entirely doomed the chances of the youth climate strike movement had to move society in a direction that wasn't, essentially, the furtherance of a carbon suicide cult.
Jay, can you give us a sense of how big this movement is on the island?
Well, this is in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And these protests range from a few thousand to over 10,000 kids and their families. Playing witness to this movement, its emotion, and especially its anger, was really a privilege. I believe that history will look poorly on our society's ignoring of these kids' concerns. Our failure of climate imagination and action is, to me, inconceivable. This is the Butte Creek Canyon. It and the Feather River Canyon were both thought to be unlikely to be crossed by wildfire, helping to insulate the town of Paradise from some wildfire danger. Both canyons were breached by the Camp Fire. Butte Creek Canyon, at this location, not far from the location of one of the 85 deaths caused by the fire. All of the following pictures have detailed, sometimes harrowing captions excerpted here. I do encourage you to visit my website if you want to find out more. The campfire ignited on the morning of November 8, 2018, and burned 150,336 acres. In addition to the 85 area residents burned to death by the fire, as many as 50 additional deaths have been attributed to the fire by public health workers and are not included in the official death toll. Prior to the fire, Paradise was a town of 26,218 people. Incorporated in 1979, the median age of its residents was 50 years old. The apparent contradictions of trees standing on entirely destroyed residential blocks is not uncommon as powerful fires spread an incalculable number of embers, called firebrands, ahead of the main conflagration. The trees remaining, snags, are among the most dangerous elements of wildland firefighting. They are inclined to topple unexpectedly, killing firefighters. 40,000 such snags needed to be felled after the fire. Every one of the 18,793 buildings destroyed in the Camp Fire was inspected by a hazmat crew. At this apartment, the crew stacked the residents' dinner service. Another of the very few surviving household artifacts in fires that burn as hot as the Camp Fire or Los Angeles are the cremains families often preserve at home. In this case, specially trained dogs were used to recover them so they weren't buried with the hazardous material of the fire.
Jay,
Evacuation.
how
Yeah.
how long after the fires did you get there?
They were not out yet. Officially, 100% containment was close. So it was, I don't remember exactly, but it was very soon. Not as soon as I was at Lahaina, but very soon. Evacuation from the path of the campfire was impossible for many who died. Lack of car ownership, age, disabilities. garage doors that failed due to power outages, and the incredible timescale of the fire contributed. The fire ignited at 6:31 a.m. Within an hour of the first evacuation order at 7:46 a.m., gridlock trapped hundreds in Paradise, 8 miles from the origin, only 90 minutes earlier. Flames entered Paradise at 7:59 a.m., and soon the blaze was hot enough to melt the tires and burst windows of evacuees' cars. There were at least 19 burnovers in town, instances where all evacuation routes were blocked by fire. Burnovers had previously been considered to be rare occurrences in a wildfire. By 9:15 a.m., Paradise was destroyed. At its early afternoon peak, the fire grew 10,000 acres in a single 90-minute period. That's a football field's area every second. In Concow, 6 died in or near their cars fleeing flames. The official Paradise toll saw 8 evacuees die in their cars and 1 beside their car. This was Mama Celeste's Pizzeria, a popular local pizza joint. The campfire has been the deadliest in California's history, the deadliest nationally since 1918. The terror of the fire's missing persons list was visceral throughout the state, at one point achieving a peak of more than 600 people. Diligent and exhaustive work by personally affected local authorities whittled the list down. The fire burned so hot that forensic anthropologists were needed to aid the search. Even with these extraordinary efforts, there are people among the dead whose bodies will never be identified or even recovered. I thought, having walked that fire ground, made those pictures, that Paradise would be the event that awakened Americans to the realities ahead under the deteriorating climate regime that had sustained us. In the time between this image and that last picture, Lahaina burned, killing 102 people. My assignment there usurped Paradise's status as the hardest workdays of my life. I had desired to return to Paradise at the campfire's 5th anniversary to take stock of what might be possible in recovering from such devastation. Lahaina demanded it. 5 years later, this is a picture of pre-fire Paradise, a vignette of the historical condition Paradise had known and which had survived the fire. These folks are tying a memorial balloon at the Butte Creek Canyon overlook. This
Jay,
is
question.
yeah.
What was the moment for you to become an advocate? What crystallized it for you that I have to be involved?
I'm a journalist, and the very nature of journalism is that I myself can advocate with my work. And I have it's part of my growing up in Hawaii, being like embedded in the natural world, understanding human hubris. All of these things just push me to do this work. It's a hard question for me to answer, Frank. But this is a residential lot. This is what remediation looks like: a foot of soil scraped and disposed of. This is post-fire development, and you can see that snag of a tree that had fallen. This tree was crushed, or this truck was crushed by a tree in front of a house that had burned and was turned into a memorial. This is a second of silence for each of the campfire's 85 victims. This was the last community dinner held at a church. The woman at the right is reading an account of the death circumstances of each of the victims of the fire and celebrations of their lives, the hardest book I have ever read through. Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena has long been on the cutting edge of space and climate research. Its satellites tell us everything from the quantity of water and depth of the Earth's rivers and oceans to investigating the origins of the universe. It seemed like a good place for me after Paradise to take the temperature of global warming concern. And given the political climate, I'm not going to identify anybody in the following pictures by name. She told me that she, quote, worked on a proposed mission to predict the timing and extent of permafrost thaw. In that case, not only was the subject of the investigation objectively alarming, but it was pretty clear the scientists themselves were anxious about the urgency of the problem. She believes, quote, those not suffering climate effects have a moral obligation to do something. His work on Lab, quote, reinforces my concerns about global warming every day. And he believes, quote, popular movements are our last and best chance. And as we departed, he told me, the planet will be the final arbiter of global warming consequences. She sees JPL's funding realities, quote, clamming up people there. It's a panopticonic scenario of self-censoring. When it comes to global warming's consequences worldwide, she sees the US stuck in a pattern of, quote, infringement of others' rights by honoring individual freedoms. He describes the emotional component of his global warming concern as, quote, large and complicated. I would say it is largely fear, followed closely by sadness. His level of concern, quote, has grown drastically as I've been more exposed to the climate science that is done at JPL.
Jay, question
Yeah,
for you. How do you measure success from what you're doing?
well, in the case of the follow-up of the Paradise Fire, that piece showed up in several big public health conference presentations. It was, in, I guess, very much debated in emergency response circles. Um, ultimately, that's a hard thing. Like, if you go to my website and look at the clips page, there's a place, or there's an essay I wrote called Geographies of Hubris and Grief. And it's a long way to answer that, but read that. Ultimately, I don't have high hopes for us.
And just from a creative standpoint, did you ever think of doing video of these folks as well?
I haven't. I do written reporting, audio reporting, and this sort of documentary work, and I feel like my dance card's pretty full.
Okay.
Um, he told me that he is, quote, terrified and grieving about my children's futures, my duty as a dad, and that he is, quote, more terrified of climate breakdown than I am of hurting my career. He ended with me saying, quote, our quest for convenience and profit has disconnected us from the wild world. Every kilogram of CO2 we emit is damaging. Keeping this at a level of scientific distance is a form of denial. He told me that global warming is, quote, a collective action problem, not a technology problem. It's not possible to design our way out of it. So the following are California Conservation Corps Wildland Fire Service hand crews on the fire line descending into Cave Creek Valley in Butte County, working the 330-acre Cohasset prescribed burn. The helicopter carries beneath it a flamethrower to help ignite the blaze. The Corps' motto, hard work, low pay, miserable conditions, and more. They work under the supervision of CAL FIRE, and they do the heavy work of preparing for and managing a burn of this scale. The day's burn ran ridge to ridge in a steep, narrow valley, effectively a wind tunnel should the fire jump the line and burn long enough for ordinary prevailing wind conditions to return. The idea that this sort of work can be done easily or quickly, as is often intimated by politicians and pundits after a major fire, belies the truth of the planning and labor that contributes to a prescribed burn of this scale. In Butte County, CAL FIRE must also deal with the demands of politicians in nearby Sacramento who don't want to see smoke in the state capitol under any circumstances. Really. These pictures are of the Oahu Invasive Species Committee at work. OISC is a frontline group of young conservationists working to stop dangerous invasive species gaining a foothold on the island. The group's diversely funded from the state to the DoD, the Department of Defense. Here, an OISC field crew member walks a survey line on the hunt for Myconia calvescens, the green cancer of the Pacific, one of the world's most dangerous noxious weeds. As Myconia travels upslope on Oahu, the erosion the plant causes, thanks to its shallow rooting, allows for rainwater to stand in puddles. As global warming raises Hawaii's mountain ranges temperatures, the mosquito that is our avian malarial vector achieves higher and higher altitudes, infecting and killing gravely endangered birds that were previously above the line of malarial spread. We in Hawaii lead the world in both extinction losses and threatened and endangered species. OISC field crews survey polygons of backcountry forests looking for and destroying plants that have become established or sprouting. Myconia's seeds remain viable for as long as 18 to 20 years, may be dispersed by birds as far as 18 kilometers from their origin, and a single plant may produce as many as 9 million seeds over its lifespan. The plants are destroyed by immediate uprooting if they are not flowering and producing seeds. Plants producing seeds are carefully quarantined, the seeds removed to be incinerated, and the plants then removed.
And Jay, is it hard to get access with these a variety of these groups?
This group, the access is easy. Whether you can keep up with them is the question. She's surveying a line, as all of their lines are, 100 meters wide with an OISC field hand at each end in the middle of the line. And these polygon surveys demand field crews to walk a straight line regardless of topography. She's about to travel downslope into that valley behind her, going beneath the branch at the lower, that big heavy branch at the lower left of the photo onto the valley floor. It's brutal, brutal work. Here, an OISC staffer enters a wild boar system of tunnels through a dense thicket of native uluhe fern after determining that this is the safest way to travel to the survey's next polygon. There was no light indicating the tunnels end at the entrance, and fortunately, we found no sleeping boars. Here, the same person is evacuating during rain and wind after large falling tree limbs forced a retreat from this guava forest. Guavas are notorious for failing under wind or rain load. They drop enormous limbs and sometimes topple.
And Jay, these folks that you meet here, do you get a little bit into their psyche on why they do it, what makes them so committed? You know, do you get a chance to really feel embedded?
Absolutely. In this case, I went out with them 4 times on 4 separate surveys and got to know them quite well and stay in touch. And I'm trying to push this story out and would address that in the written component of the story. Here, the crew lead at the left in the yellow was nearly hit by one of those falling limbs. And this is the rendezvous point after the evacuation. So sea level rise is already affecting Oahu. These pictures are from an ongoing coastal survey, which also compares historical photos to locations I rephotographed today. As sea levels rise, king tides bring wave action to places where such influence has been historically absent, eroding previously unaffected coastline. Each cycle of the tide scouring the beach and bringing the ocean further inland. Waikiki hotels today are already facing multiple days a month with seawater incursion into their basements. Waikiki's beaches are subsiding 2.5 centimeters annually thanks to their construction on varied, inconsistent fill. Here, visitors are sunbathing at a spot that used to be a 50-foot deep beach. And here, a visitor is walking on a pathway that has been undermined and has started to collapse. Here, they're filling sandbags to stabilize a property. You can see the collapse near Rocky Point on the North Shore. Buttressing the coast, buttressing property is illegal under state use codes, coastal use codes. Of course, multi-million-dollar properties are often owned by people wealthy enough to place burritos like these constructions of geotextile fabric and sand. They fight the fines and notices of violation in the legal system. In the interim, though, these buttressing situations increase downcoast erosion and speed it up. Here, a woman stands and observes the single-family home on Kainui Road, which fell onto the beach, coincidentally, on the day of the release in Berlin of the 2022 IPCC report, Climate Change 2022, Impacts, Adaptation, and Vulnerability. And this photograph was used in our own federal climate assessment that's in the news these days. And here, this intersection is a straight line mile from the beach, which could represent a spot on the edge of Honolulu's coast by 2100 with 5 feet of sea level rise. We are failing to curb the emissions that we put out, and that is putting us on a path that will likely deliver a sea level rise of between 3.5 and 7 feet by 2100. The following are from a book project I'm in the midst of, looking at the crisis that faces the American West, and the West more generally. Each picture is accompanied by a detailed reported caption. This photo's caption addresses the contemporary concept of defaunation, the human pressures on and loss of wild species. This one addresses our systems of declaring a species to be threatened or endangered. This one, the Geo Group and the private prison industry incarcerating immigrants and migrants, and the ongoing reality of the climate migration we are already facing domestically and at the southern border. The protesters are from the Jewish-led group Never Again Action, which calls on Jews' experience of the Holocaust to prevent such injustices occurring again. And that cop was not happy about being there. He very much agreed with the protesters, and he was the commanding officer on site. This is climate tourism. The caption here addresses the reality that the Pacific Theater is more dangerous than it has been since the Cold War, and talks about our ticking doomsday clock. You can guess. There is legitimate crisis, fear, and dissatisfaction in the US, and it is manifesting itself in substantially concerning ways. Of course, this one addresses Lahaina and climate-influenced disasters, present and future. That is the poison dart frog, thousands of miles from its ordinary habitat and naturalized thanks to human intervention. We've changed our world dramatically. Caring for the altered, ecologically unbalanced planet is squarely on us. And this summer, for the first time, I brought a camera into the water to photograph a reef that I have known since childhood, in sickness and in health. That's a single humuhumu ele, a black Durgan triggerfish, and a kala, a uniform tang, swimming above degraded cauliflower coral heads. That's a combined school of fish. The fish population is doing quite well. Corals and the predator population are not doing well. This reef system is host to the only natural passage through the corals of Mamala Bay, Waikiki's location. As such, it's been the site of trans-Pacific communication cables since the very first telegraph line was strung to San Francisco in 1902, and these lines crisscross that reef passage. These cauliflower coral heads exhibit signs of bleaching and acidification stress. Those are ta'ape, blue-striped snapper, racing through a reef passageway. They were introduced intentionally from French Polynesia, stocked by the Hawaiian Division of Fish and Game. It's been designated as an invasive species in Hawaii for its overwhelming proliferation, and thanks to its not being the target of a single local predator, not even people who prefer to eat local snapper. These are mature omilu, the bluefin trevally. Omilu are silver and blue in color, which often renders them nearly, invisible underwater, even as their blues register as the brightest, shockingest neon. Like many fish on the reef, they're able to change their coloration, and I have seen them entirely neon blue above the median line, or dark, brown-black, even displaying vertical stripes that change before my eyes. Mature jacks hunt in packs, while juveniles often pair with a moray eel to range the reef, searching for a meal. They're one of the most stunning fish of the sea. They're also delicious as sashimi. Sashimi and poke. The world is super complicated. These are sunlit coral heads and swirling sand disturbed by a passing wave. And that's it. By all means, get in touch. There are two big stories I'm on that I haven't included here, and I'm available for assignments.
Great.
And thanks so much. Aloha.
No, that's really terrific. Put all of that in the chat room, and hopefully you can stick around so that we can ask you more questions after
Yeah,
we're done.
I plan to stay till the end. Thanks so much
Great.
for having me.
Terrific. Thank you very, very much. It's we all have to do better, the old story. So with that, you stop sharing, and you'll see some nice quotes in there in the chat room. And next up is Joe Patronite. I don't know why I can't say an Italian name, but I just can't. So Joe, you take over, and we'll let you do show us your work.
So is Jay gonna share my screen, or do I have to redo it again?
No. Jay, let him share the screen.
Yeah, you should be able to share the screen now.
Okay. Okay. Okay, there you go, Joe.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Frank and Jay, thank you for your assistance in having me along. My name is Joe Patronite, and I'm going to show you a long-term project that I've been working on, actually since 2015. The project is it's about America, but it's dealing with a number of different themes. It started off as daily life. It started off as patriotism coverage. It had its roots with work and faith, and it's morphed a bunch. And I'll explain it to you as we continue this project, this presentation. This is my old beat up map that I've been taking with me everywhere since 2015. Everything that you see here in highlight is actually just the road trips alone. It doesn't this doesn't include the places that I flew to that I did coverage over 1 or 2 days or a week. But it gives you a sense of how many trips has been taken since the start, including down in the corners of Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and Alaska. In 1883, the poet Emma Lazarus wrote a poem called New Colossus, and we are aware of the real famous quote, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free." I had never been to Ellis Island or to the Statue of Liberty, and I was amazed by the number of ferries bringing 500 and 600 people every trip out to the island. So I liken it to all the ships that have come in the turn of the last century, bringing folks from all over the world to become members of the family of the United States. Bear with me here, folks. There we go. I'm not going to talk about every picture. Diversity has become a big issue and theme within this project. It'll probably get the book banned when it gets published, as of what's happening right now in our country.
How close are you to doing the book, Joe?
We are in the process of doing the pitching on it, and if everything works, Frank, we're going to have it published next year, 2026, for the 250th anniversary of the United States.
Wow.
So, again, my themes run from politics and patriotism to the pandemic, protest, immigration, and houseless indigenous folks. You'll see some other street photography within this, just things I've come upon. Weird stuff.
And Joe, as you travel, are you going knowing that there's an event here or an event there, or you happened upon it?
It's a combination of things, Frank. First of all, like during the 2020, this is from the 2020 election cycle. And I think I've covered 4 or 5 Trump rallies and a couple Biden rallies. So I was looking for imagery that shows the folks that are backing Trump or the folks that are against him. This is an impeachment rally in Los Angeles right after he was in office in 2017, actually. I do a lot of research. I try to find things that are happening that might be of interest visually and importantly historically. The lady on the left there is Doris. I've seen her at 4, maybe 5 Trump rallies. And the reason I like to include her is because most of the Trump folks you see are Caucasian, and she's pretty fervent Trump fan.
Do you speak to all these people? Do you get, any interviews? Like,
yeah, the old newspaper and magazine training of going and talking to them and getting names and addresses and emails that I can send them pictures afterwards. Yeah, I want to have as much information about the people I'm photographing as possible.
right. And you travel solo, Joe?
Yeah, most of it. Most of it's been on my own. I've had some local journalists and local guides in a few places, like in Puerto Rico and in Alaska. But for the most part, it's me just figuring out where I want to go. Like this Proud Boys rally. This was a month before the election in 2020. That's Enrico Tario, who was the president of the Proud Boys. He was put in prison for his January 6th participation and organization, and has been now pardoned by Trump as when he came back into office.
And Joe, is it possible to keep your own personal views out, or it's just
I'm trying as hard as I can. Again, Frank, I think because of growing up in daily journalism, you try to be as balanced as possible. Maybe some of the photography has a little editorialness to it, and maybe I poke fun at some things, but I really try to be as balanced as I can.
And how do you check yourself on that? That's sort of interesting. Like you try to be balanced. Like, I mean, like, do you do something, like where you actually stop and say, wait, I've got to be here or I've got to be there?
I grew up not talking about politics or religion to anybody that I was on assignment with, so that's sort of held true throughout. It's been an interesting process because there's a lot of people that want to engage you, specifically if they know you're a journalist or in my case, a documentary photojournalist. The pandemic, obviously, the first voting during the pandemic. This is Angela Platt. She was a first-time poll worker in Washington, D.C. This is January 6th, just as Trump is finishing up his talk prior to many of these people and thousands of others going from the ellipse down to the Capitol, and obviously then the storming of the Capitol. So when the 24th election cycle started, I wanted to try to do some things that are a little bit different, maybe a little bit offbeat. In rural Virginia, I found a former church that is now the largest Trump store in the world. And this is Whitey Taylor. He's the actual owner of the store.
And are any of the are you working for any publication while you're on this trip, or is it all freelance?
It's all been for me. It's all been for the project. I haven't taken one assignment throughout the whole project.
Wow.
And I was lucky enough to be given access to the political rallies, which will enhance the final product.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit here, talking about America. I have a few images from Route 66, which I've traversed a few times during this project. In the panhandle of Texas, just outside of Amarillo, is the famous Cadillac Ranch, which is an art installation which was created in 1974 by a group of artists called the Ant Farm. And yeah, you can literally get out of your car on the frontage road, walk across the mud, and do pictures with these old cars. I'm fascinated with how people show up at landmarks and show up, and all they do is do their selfies or their little videos, and then they leave. Just at the Grand Canyon.
Where were you born and raised, Joe?
I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
Started in photography when I was young, and actually had a first picture published in a weekly newspaper in the Cleveland area when I was around 14 or 15 years old.
And as you make a trip like this, across our great country. What motivates you? What stirs you? What surprises you?
I think the surprises that have come are that though very diverse and may sound cliche, though very diverse in population, things are really in most people's lives pretty much the same cross-culturally. I could be in the church where Martin Luther King was the pastor at the start of the civil rights movement, or I could be in during Ramadan in Dearborn, and yeah, the religions were different, but the sense of community was the same. And I think that traverses across playing and yeah, different cultures. That's what I.
And you do a trip like this, do you find yourself more or less optimistic, patriotic? Like what has changed in you in doing a trip like this?
I've had ups and downs with that question, Frank. It seems sometimes that you go in a situation and you go, what the hell is what's happened? And then you go to other places like here in liberal Kansas, that's a theme park for the Wizard of Oz, and there's young women dressed as Dorothy, so yeah. I
That was
still
a good no answer, Joe.
I still have faith in our country. Found some offbeat things during these trips. This was actually in Tucson one night. So they were doing a hair and fashion show. So kind of alien looking, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to really keep on looking to find it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here are the judges.
Great. I could hear my father saying only in America.
So in Roswell, New Mexico, they have an actual museum for aliens.
And Joe, I mean, there's got to be moments where do you feel like you're out of your comfort zone?
Oh yeah, of course.
And that's good, right?
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is. Sometimes you get a feeling that people are thinking you're intruding, and then you start having a conversation or telling people what you're doing, and all of a sudden it's like, well, you should go see so and so, and this person does this, and so that's how doors open up, right?
Yeah. Being interested and being interesting, right?
Yeah, I think so. If anybody within this group has been to or has ridden in hot air balloons, you know that they're huge and they're colorful, and when they're filling them with the propane, it's really loud and the fire. So how do you think the stimulation of an infant on all those senses hit, you know? But then her older sister bends down and has a cartoon character on the top of her hat. So, I think there's a little serendipity sometimes.
Yeah. Where's that, Joe?
This is at the Bradfordstown Blues Bar, which is up north of Tallahassee, Florida. And I visited the Blues Bar a couple times during the pandemic. Now, I've never watched TV wrestling. And I'm walking down the street in Brooklyn, and I look across the street, and there's a guy with no shirt on carrying this big belt. I gotta go see what this is all about. I go across, and this is a former WWE champion called Jinder Mahal. And he was doing a self-promotional video. He had a couple people with small cameras, and he was waiting for the metro to leave the station. This is in Brooklyn, and that's why he's looking up, but the lady's amusement is just, it's hilarious. And then if you venture in Las Vegas enough on your feet, you're going to find all kind of people.
Even if you don't want to, right?
So in 1783, in Bristol, Rhode Island, they held their first 4th of July parade. And this is in 2023. So this is usually the last picture in my presentation, Frank, because I like to say that there is hope.
Yeah.
Some other little 4th of July pictures from different places around the country.
Yeah,
Little
and Joe,
towns.
are you going to write copy for the book, or do you have someone who's going to do that?
I'm gonna have it's between about 5 writers that I've either worked with or really want to have to work with.
Great.
So we'll see how the progression is. The book is just starting to get shopped around to publishers right now. So I never knew that most of the major nations in the the American Indian communities have their powwows on the 4th of July weekends. So this was in Lame Deer, Montana, on the Northern Cheyenne, and then a few years later in Window Rock, Arizona, at the Navajo Nations. You know, naturalized citizens and immigrants really play an underlying part in this whole project. These folks from South Asia with their children on their first visit to the Statue of Liberty.
And Joe, have you finished shooting, or you're continuing to shoot?
I'm going to try to have everything wrapped up by the fall of this year. I'm working to have access with some traditional whaling up in above the Arctic Circle and a couple of the native nations up there. Looks like we're going to get in there maybe in June. And a few other little things. There's some more stuff on the border I think I want to do. And but for the most part, most of the photography is done. And just as a point, most of this has been done with only 2 lenses. So
Tell us which one. Tell us what camera you're working with.
I use Leica cameras, and it's been 50mm Nakalux and 21mm. Most of it. So we're going to morph over into the pandemic, and I just don't want to run over on time too much. So the Lakota Sioux Nation was hit really, really hard per capita. They lost the most people. When this picture was taken in August of 2020, they had already lost 200 people from a population on the land of 24,000. So they had set up roadblocks. This is a real popular road that goes from Sturgis in South Dakota to the national park in the Black Hills National Park. And they were making sure that nobody from the motorcycle communities were coming across their lands during the pandemic lockdown. Erica Harris, a nurse in Chicago. Lisa Cole at a drive-in testing place in the south side of Chicago. And we had everybody on the other side of the scale that wanted to ignore PPE, and this is actually from that motorcycle rally in Sturgis.
Yeah, Joe, can you speak to going through the pandemic, traveling, like not being home? can you share some thoughts around that?
Conservatively, I've made somewhere between 70 and 80 airplane flights alone. Here in Sturgis, where this picture was taken, 4 times in 2 days, people told me to take my masks off.
Is it more lonely, or is it a relief to be out? I mean, like, how was it for you in that context?
To keep working during something this important was really, for me, it lightened my spirits. We were lucky here in Tucson. We didn't have full lockdown compared to other places, and so we were able to, like, I used to race bicycles, and I ride bikes when I'm home, and was able to go out with friends. So, but the actual travel during the project was really, really important for me. Spring break down in South Texas. Then the clubs and the restaurants and the bars started opening up. This is in Brooklyn, New York. I was in Washington, D.C., and I was working with a Catholic Charities at one of the churches, and it was going to be the Day of the Dead weekend, and this lady actually was from Mexico originally, and so I asked Laura if she knew of any Dias de los Muertos, and she goes, they don't really do it up here, but I have an altar in my house. You want to come by? And I was like, yeah. And she's a COVID survivor. So, Frank, it's just most people are pretty nice. You just have to ask them, and most people know right away whether you're above board or you're not,
Yeah.
When the protests after George Floyd's murder started happening around the country, I drove from Arizona over to Los Angeles because obviously the protests were really large in Los Angeles. And I was with a group that had left a church in the Wilshire district, and we were a mile into the march, and over on the corner, I see this lady in her robe, and she's cheering and she's clapping, and I get a little closer to make some pictures, and she breaks down crying. This is Teresa Pitts, and one of the things about what I do, Frank, and everybody else, is that you keep learning. I'm a Caucasian male. I don't know what her life's experience has been, and I didn't really care about the march, so I ended up spending a half an hour talking to Teresa afterwards, and it was really, it was an enlightening conversation. Same day. On what would have been George Floyd's 50th birthday, I was up in Minneapolis, and I went over to the memorial site where he was suffocated, and this is his aunt, Angela Harrison, and so you put for me, it was wonderful to put a personal, quiet moment into my book project.
Is there a marker there today?
Yeah, it's still all there. All this is there.
Is that right?
This was just last fall.
Wow. Good. How many miles, Joe? Do you keep a count on that?
I've flown over 300,000, and probably between my own car and rental cars, probably between 50 and 70,000 miles. But these are situations where you wait and see what happens. I mean, it's Veterans Day. And I'm in Washington at the Vietnam Veterans Wall. And I see this guy in full dress, and he's walking down, and he's talking to a few people. And when he stops, I was 15 feet away, so I walk over, and he's talking with some friends or colleagues, and then he breaks down because he recognizes one of the names of a guy that was in his platoon. So, and I don't put cameras in people's faces. I'm real respectful of that. This maybe 5 frames of this, and then I backed off and I waited until he collected his thoughts, and we talked after that. Some daily life in Puerto Rico. I mean, where else do you go and you can hang out with old guys playing dominoes for a couple hours, right?
Joe, I think the sentiment from in my head and my heart is I want to be you. This is really a great, great trip. What a great, great trip.
So I don't know about everybody that's listening here, but I've I have personally never seen Orthodox Jews smiling in public. This is actually at Coney Island.
Yeah, at the cyclone.
Yeah. Jay Walther, who was a ringmaster for a family circus prior to performances. Frank, you're from New York, right?
I'm a Brooklyn guy, yeah.
Yeah, so you know in Brooklyn every fall they do
Jamaica.
the weekend for the American Caribbean
Right, the
folks.
islands, yeah.
Yeah, so this was prior to the pandemic, and I saw her go in, and when she came out, I made a few snaps, and I went and talked to her and got her information. And when I sent the email with this picture, she wrote me back saying, "Thank you for the picture. The Queen has finally left the palace."
There
So
you
I
go.
use that as the title of this picture all the time.
Mhm.
Same day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always it's always in the summer. It's always a great party.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you choose the places that you're gonna go visit?
Well, like this in Minnesota, I made 5 trips up in 2023 because I was given entree to a farm family. So I went up in every season when the Samuelsons were doing their planting and their harvest, and so I got to spend some time with that family, and then I did these other little things like, you know, if you're in Minnesota in the winter, you know, you want to go maybe photograph some ice hockey, right? Or pond hockey, I should say.
Yeah, yeah. So do you have a list like or did you create a list? These are the things I want to cover. Like, how do you get information that here's a good place to go, this is a good place to go? Just word of mouth, doing your own research, some
Combination of things.
yeah.
But I took the pictures out from this, but the Samuelson family knew Mexican family, and one of the girls was having a quinceanera while I was up there, and so I went and photographed the quinceanera, which is the traditional coming out of teenage girls to womanhood, right?
Yeah.
But like
Wow.
this, there's only a handful of drive-in movie theaters left, and this is in Spirit Lake, Iowa. This family drives a couple times a summer, 1.5 hours each way to go see a movie. And they were watching Barbie. So, you know, I saw the theater, and I contacted the folks, and they say, yeah, come and make some pictures if you want to. So I'm a little bit over, Frank. Hope that's
No,
not
you're good.
okay. So this gets into work. So I've spent a bunch of time, 3 or 4 trips, specifically at this same Imperial Valley California farm during harvest seasons.
Wow.
Every working day, between 2,000 and 3,000 head of cattle are brought from Mexico through the border fence to the United States. And then they're shipped off to different places. The irony of this situation is that it's less than a mile away from the border crossing for humans, which they're not allowing people to come in to seek asylum.
Mm.
Matt, he's one of the cowboys on the Hoodoo Ranch, which is the largest cattle ranch in the United States, just outside of Cody, Wyoming.
And do you show new subjects some of the work so they get an understanding of what you're doing?
If I'm doing a more longer term thing like the farm family, or if I'm going to make multiple visits, I try to let them see the website and see what I do.
Right.
I never show anybody pictures in the back of the cameras.
Okay.
And that's just this is in Seaside, Oregon, just father and son lumberjacks. San Antonio, Texas barbershop. Okay, we're getting this little group of pictures is from Hawaii. The main reasons I've been going over to Hawaii have been to work with the homeless communities that are on the west side of Oahu, in Wainea. They have a cultural center above Wainea, and I was lucky enough to spend an afternoon up there, and Makayo and Nani are doing a traditional hula, and I'm like, other than the people playing the instruments, I was the only other person there. Just I got my own cultural. It was really cool. This encampment has been around for about 25 years in Wainea, and they get a lot of donations. Unfortunately, they're throwing donations away because they were flooded after a big rainstorm.
Mm.
This is Moki. She's been in the camp, living there since 2009, and she collects the Hello Kitty paraphernalia that's donated. This is inside her house. Jasmine, who's in the white shirt, and Ashley have been a couple and lived on the streets basically for 10 years. But they were some of the first people that have been moved into these new housing that they're building from government grants. They're one bedroom in the A-frame, so right behind them on the right side is the one bedroom house which you just saw. It's pretty small, but it, it gets people off the streets, right?
Yeah, that's all you want. House over, a roof over your head. The fires.
Yeah, I am. While I was there, I met Bruce and Joy Mao. Their families had, it's not an encampment, they had 3 houses on their property that his grandfather built almost 100 years ago. Totally destroyed. But they've started rebuilding, so this is good. Speaking of moving over to migration, what I've tried to do here is show two ends of the scale. These are folks that are all middle-class folks coming from the Ukraine, fleeing the war through multiple countries, airline flights. This is in Tijuana. They're going to go the next day over into the United States, just below San Diego. Almost all of them are sponsored. And they're coming with, as you can see, multiple suitcases. Some cases they came with their pets. Unlike the Venezuelans who are coming at 3 o'clock in the morning, crossing the Rio Grande in freezing weather.
Man, not surprising that image of the Ukrainians. Everything is perfectly neat and taking their animals. We've done a bunch of stories on Ukraine over the past 3 years, and that's that's exactly what you expect from the Ukrainians. Everything is just perfectly neat, dignified, the whole bit.
So the Venezuelan folks, this is in El Paso, relying on a Catholic church to get them new clothing and shelter for a day or two. And again, donated clothing. The 4th of July parade in 2019 in Nogales, Arizona was going to go start off literally right next to the border fence. And it would have made a good picture no matter what. But when Miss Liberty showed up and with the razor wire, it just, yeah. Miriam Williams, who's a voodoo priestess. This is in her sanctuary in New Orleans. So I mean, Frank, I know that I'm going to go somewhere and I start looking for stories to do. I've been wanting to do an actual voodoo ceremony, but it's been really hard to get access to.
How big is the book going to be, Joe?
It's going to have a big edit because the mock-up is already close to 200 pages. And I'm literally winding down here. I've only got a few minutes.
Okay. Because
of the pandemic, the Good Friday celebrations in Little Haiti in Miami were suspended for a couple of years. And in 2022, I found out that they were going to have the first one in a couple of years. So I went to Miami and walked along with these folks, 4,000 or 5,000 people. And an Ethiopian Orthodox Catholic Church in Minneapolis during their Sunday ceremonies. Well, that's what I got to show you, folks.
Wow. Wow. You got to sit down there, Joe, and go through the chat room. A lot of wonderful comments. Everyone's very excited and just you got a whole bunch of new fans and people. When the book is ready, I'm sure they're going to be interested in seeing it. And yeah,
I appreciate that. It's been an honor to show
that's
here, but it's been an honor because of all the really talented people that you've had over the course of the times, and lucky to be included here. So,
well, we hope you can stay around. We'll get some questions for you
I'm not
later.
going anyway. If there's any questions right now, or you want to do it afterwards,
we'll do it afterwards so Stefan can go.
Very good. I'm sorry.
No, no problem at all. And certainly when the book is coming out, we want you to come back and show us the book and all the rest.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So you stop sharing and we'll get Mr. Falke on.
Am I done?
Yes. Yeah. Just stop sharing. Or doesn't.
On the bottom,
Looks like I'm not sharing. Okay.
down below.
Sorry, Stefan.
No, it's okay. I can end the share for you.
Thank you.
All right,
Uh,
Stefan, it's all yours. Sorry, we ran a little late there, Stefan. But you can
No,
blame,
no problem.
you can blame Joe.
Apparently everybody stayed, so that's all we need to know. Done. Share. Do this again. All right, full frame.
Yep. No, we see a little bit on the right there.
We still do.
Yeah, Stefan, that's to go up to your menu outside of the app in the view, and then you go to full screen. Oh, you got it.
All right. Yeah. Awesome. See, Frank, I put your sign in it, so
There you go. Nice
know-
job.
knows where we are. So yeah, thank you, Frank, for having me and us, and you really managed to keep it interesting because we have three really different body of works, and both of the last ones were really amazing and inspiring. And funny enough, that not funny, but that the last part of the body of work was along the border. I published a whole. I'm usually a people photographer, but you will see pictures tonight that I have probably not one person in it. But I have published a whole book about the U.S.-Mexico border, but in a very different way. I photographed artists who live right on the border on both sides, and traveled the 2,000 miles of it on both sides, like multiple times. And but again, this is a whole different story. If you detect an accent, I'm from Germany, so you're right. There is an accent, and but I've lived in New York for I think more than 30 years. It's my absolute favorite city in the world, and I feel really privileged that I managed to live here for so long. But I've never really photographed here. I never really photographed anywhere where I live. It's like one of these weird things that photographers often have to. Okay. Often have to travel far to, shoot pictures, and I'm one of those. But since the pandemic, in the pandemic, I shot a book project which was called "Keep Going, New York." Frank had it on his show too, and that really opened my eyes for my own city, because all of a sudden all the people were gone, and I always say, like, it opened the curtain to the city, because as a New Yorker you don't really look at anything except for what's right in front of you, because you're always in danger of being knocked or get run over, or screamed at or something. I mean, your immediate environment is more important than the next high rise. And during the pandemic, that all left. So even 5 years later, I have a totally different look onto my own city. And I need a project to work on. So I'm never really interested in a picture or the picture. I need a body of work that I'm getting obsessed about, and I can work on, and I fall asleep with and wake up with. And in this case, long story short, I grabbed a hand mirror from CVS. It cost me $9.99. One of those plastic things, they break. So I bought, I think, 10 of them by now. And there we go. And started to, shoot pictures of familiar sites, but with the help of this hand mirror. And in the beginning, it wasn't easy at all. It was kind of gimmicky and not interesting. So it really took a while to make these pictures work, and Frank and I had a lot of discussions about it. He was not a fan of it, and in a way, I wasn't a big fan of it either yet. But I knew I was onto something. It's these things that you just can't explain, and I'm totally visually driven.
So Stefan,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we had those early conversations and I was totally, I was not enthusiastic about this project at all. But what happens for you as a project? You talk about I need a project. What happens to you that all of a sudden you get over that threshold and now it's got a life? And now I know it's really a good idea. Like, when does that happen for you?
It's almost physical,
Hmm.
it just, you gotta shoot one or two or three, I always say six pictures that just work. I mean, there's good pictures and there's bad pictures, and nobody can explain why one is good and one is bad. I mean, it's just the picture has to have elements in it and the construction of it and a composition that makes people just stop, right? I mean, no matter what you want to tell, what you want to say or what the message is, if you're a visual artist or journalist, you got to make a picture stick. I mean, you got to make people stop and look at it, and then you can reveal the message. In photojournalism, it sometimes works the other way, but usually a picture has just to work. And that took me a while to find a few that worked, and even shooting them. I mean, this takes me hours. I have, like, needless to say, I'm shooting like dozens and hundreds of the same situation, and then all of a sudden, you look at the back of your camera, and you're like, if I'm impressed or surprised or it's just this feeling. You got it.
Mm.
It's hard to explain. Like
Yeah.
this, I tried so many things around Coney Island because I always go to Coney Island. It's one of my favorite places in the world. Definitely in New York, and it took a while. There's so many places, and you think it's an easy thing to you have a mirror, and you mirror something, and everything is colorful, and which I, by the way, don't even see when I'm photographing. I just got a message from Eric Viola. I was hoping he was coming on, but he can't, because he's a color. He shoots because of the color, and I don't even see the color when I shoot. And when I come home, there's all these colors, right?
Mm.
In my case, they just happen. When I shoot, I kind of see my pictures in black and white. It's all about composition and content. The colors are secondary for me, but they're always pretty wild. Oops, why is it not moving? There we go. So same here. I mean, and then the locations I choose, it's just intuitively. It's like I think I hadn't been to Roosevelt Island for a while, so I go to Roosevelt Island, take the tram and all that. Nothing worked. Took a lot of pictures on the other side of the tram. Actually, I'll show you one a little later that did work. And then all of a sudden you find this spot under the bridge, and then the something happens. The tram is, needless to say, on the other side of the bridge. And the mirror also allows me to fill the frame in a way that makes sense, because there would be a whole big empty spot there, right? And I don't want to just take a picture of the Roosevelt Island tram and the bridge. I mean, that's like, it has been done, right? That's another thing. I'm really trying to do things that haven't been done. And even the mirror photography is not, I didn't invent that, but I hope I found a way to make it somewhat interesting. Another thing was I tried to keep my hand out of the picture. That didn't work because there was no story in there, and then I realized I keep the hand in, there's an actor in the picture. It's a guy with a mirror, and that's me. Fully.
And what are you shooting with, Stefan?
Say again?
What are you shooting with?
It's a Nikon 850 with a 24-120 Nikon. I haven't taken that lens off the camera in I don't know how many years. There's no dust on my sensor. I shoot even highly paid jobs with just that one camera and that one lens. That's it. Same mirror, too. So this one, I mean, I couldn't think of something like this. I mean, I can't plan these things, right? This is a picture that I found. So all of a sudden, I'm frustrated. There's this great building, the Jenga building downtown, and nothing worked, right? It often gets very gimmicky. Even though this might be gimmicky too, but it's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
And then I see this thing in the middle of the road. I mean, traffic left and right. If I could have a soundbite of this one. And then, I worked my way towards this, And only by blowing it up, I had an exhibition a few weeks ago, and I had very large prints of this. I found the Empire State Building in it, right above the World Trade Center. In the mirror, inside the mirror, is the Empire State Building.
There you go.
Never saw that when I shot it. This is one of the first pictures I took. It works more through through the color scheme and all that, which I didn't see when I was shooting it. That is when I slowly came to me that I might be onto something.
Okay. Yeah, this is another one.
It's a process, and then there's a lot of people, like with all my projects in the beginning, when I show it to other people, that they all say, nah, you're wasting your time, don't do it. And that's usually a sign that I'm onto something. Because
How many times are you going to say it, Stefan? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm not talking about you.
I'm part of the
Well, you helped.
yeah. That's I want to think of that way. Yeah.
I'm not saying that because of you. One of my most best and most successful book, the Trinidadian Mokojumbi book with the silt walkers. I had my bestest friends told me, like, don't do it. It's a waste of time. You will spend years on it and all the money and this and that. And art is when you do it anyway. So that's my take on it.
It's a great shot.
This is on the other side of the Roosevelt Island or the Queensboro Bridge. Sometimes pictures even work as a statement it wasn't intended like that, but it could be a congestion pricing picture, it could be used for that. But
And you ever come upon a scene, Stefan, where I know this is a great location and you get it, or I know this is a great location, but I just can't get it?
Oh, totally. Like the Empire State Building drove me crazy. I mean, you think that's the easiest of all.
I mean, this is a great shot. I mean, what made you think to do that? It's just great.
Yeah, I didn't. It's on that platform of the tram.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do. I mean, that's the beauty of it. That's photography, right? It comes together at some point, or it doesn't. At least you're practicing,
What I love about the book also is that you don't repeat things. It's not like the same shot here and there. It's each one is unique in itself.
Yeah, I'm showing a few double pages after these. I'm not showing too many, so it doesn't get repetitive. But that was a big challenge to put the pages together, the pictures. So sometimes I have the same scenery. This was also one of the first ones where I didn't know. I mean, there's the Whitney Museum and there's the Standard Hotel and all that, and that was the idea. And I just couldn't get it together, so I kept it simple. And for me, this works beautifully. You can tell by the vegetation on the little island that this was in January or February, and there was a very, very start of it. I only spent, and I'm saying only, about a year on this, because usually my projects take far longer than that. This is a picture I really love, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever other than beauty, maybe, it's just interesting.
And how do you know that it's over, Stefan?
Well, in this case, it does get repetitive at some point. It's really not easy to keep that up. And as you know, I was in the United Emirates in Dubai, and I was in the middle of this project, so I continued there. And that was a whole new boost. When I came back, I was really energized to continue this. When it's over is usually when I have enough for a blood book, which is 60, 70 pages. So I need about 60 really good pictures. Lipstick building, this is one of my favorite pictures. Sometimes the hand, I mean, it really depends on it's. I have at the end a picture of showing me how I do this. Sometimes the hand doesn't fit at all because I'm zooming in. I have to, because otherwise the composition doesn't work. So the hand is either the real player or it's just, I mean, my hand. This is one of the few pictures with the person in it. Barely. There's Williamsburg, one of the new buildings, building, what is that, number 1, where the Domino sugar factory is. It's just, you know, it's just puzzling. It puzzles even me, you know. And that was the fun of it. It really kept puzzling me that I could do this.
And Stefan, did you ever think of using somebody else's hand?
No.
No. Okay.
First of all, it's really difficult to control this. Like in this case, it was really windy and the mirror moved. It is so difficult to get the right shot. And then you have a problem with the shutter speed, because as soon as the mirror moves a little, that picture is like as if a car drives by. I mean, you need like 5/100th of a second at least to keep this sharp. And don't have motion blur in it. So technically it's tricky too. And then I had to learn how to, you know, you have to focus on the picture in the mirror. That's the only focus you need. And then it's like f-stop for you who are photographers, f-stop 11 at the minimum, usually more than that. So it's usually shot in bright daylight. I would call it the Kodachrome light. I love bright daylight. When every other photographer goes home, I'm like at work.
Okay.
This one I really like too, because it's again, it's about filling that space. It's I'm not really showing anything important, or you know, the mirror doesn't give you any more information than there is already in the picture, but it fills the frame, right? I mean, it just that view is really hellishly interesting already. And then the light that falls on it. So this is really a pure photography project. It doesn't have any message. It doesn't have any. It's really the first time I'm not trying to say anything in my work. I mean, the former colleague, he showed pictures of the conventions and all that. I have shot conventions since 2004. John Kerry, if anybody remembers him, tried to be president in Boston.
Right.
And I've shot conventions ever since, and I rejected the last jobs for the last conventions. I just can't do it anymore. So over time, you know, having shot all these stories and things that then at some point get old, for me personally, you know, you move to something like this.
Yeah.
It's a little dangerous for some clients of mine, because some people don't really know where I'm going with all this, because I used to, I mean, every one of my book is different. You could say it's a different photographer almost. But I'm still enjoying doing editorial stories, and this is the Chrysler building. So there's people. This was another example of where I just didn't know what to do. There was absolutely nothing I could do. It was somewhere on the West Side Highway. And then I realized I could just play with forms, you know, and perspective, and you know, works fine with me. And then, you know, you see the window cleaners on the left, so there's a little reportage type of element to it. I love this shot. Yeah, this is a good example of known locations in a new view, right? I mean, this is the shed, the art hub, and the vessel. This is up on the, Frank, you know that building well. It's the one Vanderbilt building.
Yeah.
TD Bank in the bottom.
Mhm.
Has this 2 floors of fully, it's all glass. I mean, it's one of the, I don't even know if I liked it, but it worked well for my purpose.
Yeah.
Birthday is the Unisphere in Queens.
Yeah, so Stefan, do you look at these as fine art pieces now?
Yeah, they're kind of going there.
Mhm.
I'm actually thinking about, marketing them. I'm a working photographer, by the way. I mean, I just always think about how to market.
What you doing down here, dog?
Often I'm not very successful with it. Sometimes I am. At the end of the day, it's all geared to finding people who hire me for something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
Which worked crazy well with the last book. So we'll see with this one. There's always people who go along with you and say, why can't you shoot this and that for me in that way?
Mm.
That's really my main goal because I totally enjoy that. It's the old polio hospital on Roosevelt Island. That's a self-portrait. I love that location. It's right above, down there is where Photoville happens. It's above the Brooklyn Bridge Park. So this is the former picture, but with me in it. By the way, physically really challenging because I'm standing like that for hours sometimes. The camera isn't light even without the motor. It's not a lightweight. And the mirror really usually goes higher than that. So it's like painting overhead or something. It's like really difficult to do over time. And then you have to answer a lot of questions because when people see me doing this, they're like all over me.
Really?
Oh man, asking questions. I love when I find spaces where there aren't any people. We're in New York. Oh, the funniest question is people say, "Oh, that's a funny way to take a selfie." That's what they think.
There you go.
And I show them a picture on the back of my camera. They're like, "Oh, wow." So this is the book. It's a small book, blurb book. Actually, I do have a much bigger version,
Right.
but these things are very expensive as soon as they make. So that's what I try to show you. The 2 pictures from Coney Island. It's really difficult to find because they're so busy already. To find 2 that match and don't kill each other.
Right.
So often it's from the same situation, like here. The picture on the left wouldn't probably make it into my choice as a single picture, but as a double, it really works.
Yeah.
And here, those pictures actually both would live as singles. That's the Whitney Museum where I just didn't have any idea what to do and came up with these stairs and that worked really fine for me. So again, it's not really about showing you locations or showing, look, we are on the Brooklyn Bridge, or look, we're here, look, we are there. It's really about pure creativity and try to make that work.
Stefan, how can people buy the book?
I will put it in the chat after I'm done here.
Okay.
Just got the Communication Arts Award of Excellence for this book, and I got the same award for the last book. So I'm really happy about that because that's a real important industry award.
Oh my God. CA is tops. Yep.
Right, so I'm really proud of that. And it's a self-published, self-motivated, self-everything, self-designed even. So really happy about this.
Yeah,
And if we have a few minutes, I want to show 5 pictures from Dubai, if I may.
Yeah, please.
Then I went to Dubai for the Sharjah, the photo festival in Sharjah. Thanks to Frank, by the way, who goes there every year. And I visited Dubai for a few days and continued there. And Dubai is the perfect, and I'm showing these also in a way that I'm actively trying to find people who finance the rest of the story in Dubai, because I only had 3 days and came up with a few shots. They, by the way, already won the ASMP 2025 award. So something is working there too already. So yeah, I mean, these are these. Dubai is amazing for this project. There's this wild buildings, but showing them as they are has been done, right? So
1,000 different times, yeah.
that doesn't mean there's no, no
There's another way.
to them again, but it's just not my thing. These are the same whole. I mean, the same owner. They're the Atlantis and forgot the other one. They're owned by the same people. These two hotels. One is more modern and one is older, but they're kind of a mile away from each other. So sometimes it's just about that, to put buildings together in one picture that otherwise couldn't be photographed in one picture. I think the last shot there again, because I had to zoom in a way that I just couldn't get more of my hand into it. But by now the viewer knows I'm there, so once in a while I can risk it. So that's the last picture.
Uh-huh.
I tried this mirror thing wherever I went, so these two camels tried to actually eat the mirror, but I got some good shots out of it.
Nice idea.
That's it.
Great. Absolutely wonderful, Stefan.
Thank you.
And so is the New York piece of this over for you? Complete?
I'm not quite certain. I took a pretty long break and also to make this book and and jobs and stuff. I mean, I'm still a people photographer. I went upstate the other day. I had a assignment for a French magazine. I showed a story about a horror book writer who becomes pretty famous up in the Catskills. I spent 2 days with him and I had a ball. I mean, those stories are just so much fun. Unfortunately, they don't pay well anymore. I mean, not only not well, they basically
Don't pay.
yeah. I mean, you can't live from them, So, but you need them anyway. They really keep your name out there, and it's just fun. I mean, you're staying creative, right? So,
So Joe and Stefan are still here. Jay had to leave. So anyone has any questions, raise your hand. Stefan, also you can, run through um run through the chat room and you can see the comments.
I'm trying to put that's my website, my
Great.
notes, and then the book or books. So I'm giving you my blurb profile, and if you scroll down there, then you'll find both of my books. They're really expensive for, you wouldn't buy books like that in the bookstore for that kind of price. I mean, so but my last book did really, really well, but it was a pandemic. Everybody had loose money in their pockets and nothing else to do. Spend it. It's really a difference selling anything these days. But it's not only there for that. I hear somebody say something.
I don't know, somebody else. So Joe, with the process of getting a book, did you ever think of doing a small sort of dummy using blur? Because a lot of folks do that.
Um,
I don't know if you're familiar with Blurb.
Yeah, maybe you can see on my shoulder, there's like 4 or 5 photo books up there. Those are
Okay.
all mock-ups from Blurb of the book.
Ah, okay. There you go.
So yeah,
Way ahead
but
of us.
it's done for basically my editing and
Yeah.
try to understand as Stefan knows,
Sequencing.
how to move
Sequence.
from one sequence things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
we do that a lot.
The same like exhibitions. I mean, again, I just had one at the German House in New York City. Printing your pictures and have them on the wall and have somebody pay for it, especially, is so essential, so important. It's such a different experience because I do everything on screen. I don't, I don't print little pictures and put them on the floor like other people or on the wall to design a book. I just do it all, sometimes on the laptop. And for some reason, I like doing that. But I also love seeing the prints and it's a whole, and then people walk in and you talk about it and the book is the same. When you sit with somebody and you have a book, it's a different thing than showing.
Yeah.
And I do that for good clients too. Like if I have a bigger project and there's enough money in it, then at the end, without them knowing it, I print them a little book, and that's usually a big success,
Yeah.
And they are just way too expensive. That's the only I love Blur, believe me, and the design program is just out of this world. It's so simple. If you can't use that, then forget it. And every other platform usually uses InDesign and all that, so you really have to be good at it. With Blurb, you can be good at it without knowing anything.
We have a question from Glenn.
Hey, Frank.
Hey, how you doing, Glenn? Thanks for coming in.
Good. Another terrific evening. I mean, you always seem to outdo yourself, so I'm impressed. I loved all the work from everyone. And Stefan, I know I've seen that project more than a few times. It's one of my favorites of yours of all time. I mean, I think it's one of the most original things I've ever seen. Had you shown me the first few, unlike Frank, I would have told you that you were onto something. But we know Frank, so.
Thank you very much, Glenn. That's another way of just getting that in.
I think the challenge for you, Stefan, specifically is going to be, honestly, how are you going to outdo yourself? And that is really a wonderfully original concept that I haven't seen and probably never have. So that's a wonderful challenge for you, I think.
Dubai. I only say
Yeah.
Dubai. If you have a lot of money and you have nothing, you don't know what to do with it, give it to me and send me to Dubai.
We're trying to do that. Maybe what we can do is get just an edit of this conversation and see if that could help us. But we'll see.
But other than that, I mean, you raised a good question. I'm somebody who does a lot of projects on my own, right? So the biggest problem with the project is ending it. That's really and most people including myself, overdo it, and then it fades into something, and then you either need help from an editor, or you see it coming. I mean, I'm such an obsessive shooter, and like my first book, and I had a real publisher. I don't know where they are these days. They took the costs and everything. They said, okay, stop, let's do it. We have enough. It's a 200-page book. I was on the plane next day to Trinidad without telling her. I just couldn't stop, and it didn't really add much. It did and it didn't, but it's the most difficult thing is to stop.
How about you, Joe?
I don't know. When I was my first internship as I was a college student at a newspaper, the photo director at the newspaper said, "Not everything could be a picture story." I was like, okay, I understand that. there's a point where you just say, you've accomplished what you need to do.
Mm.
And I'm close to that with this particular project and with other projects that I've worked on recently.
And when did the idea that I should make a book out of this, that you had such wonderful content? And you know, you've been around a while, you know how laborious that that process is, and you still, go ahead with it.
It really gelled for me. I think probably mid-pandemic, because all of a sudden there were all these new themes that were being added to, or chapters, or however you want to put it. I thought that this was a point where it expanded to a more important series of photographs historically, and not just me just going out and appeasing my own ego.
So the historic piece became big.
And you would think that somebody who was in journalism their whole life, it would have been at the forefront the whole time. But at the beginning, like I had mentioned in the beginning, things were just like, I wanted to just do patriotism and daily life and things like that. And so, yeah, again, it changed in the pandemic and the protests and the politics, things like that.
Yeah. A nice comment from Jamie. You should read in the chat room. Joe.
Okay. I have to say, I haven't read anything. So
You better.
okay.
A lot of really nice comments about your work, I have to say. Yeah. And Stefan, same question for you. Like, when do you know it's a book?
Well, again,
Or does the blurb format just lend itself, I should try this as a book?
well, as Joe also rightfully said in the beginning, not everything is a story or a book. Definitely not a book. And I have only done 4 books in my lifetime, right, in my career. They took from 7 years to 1 year to shoot. I mean, if you do a book with a publisher, it takes another year to make the book.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. So not everything is a book.
Yeah.
That's why these things are so difficult. I didn't really know I had a book. I knew I had it starts with a series, really.
Yeah.
And often I also think about my website. If you have 6 to 12 real good pictures of something, that's a nice little gallery for your website. That's often an inspiration for me.
Mm.
Because you got to refresh your website as often as you can, and then put in new work. But then, I wasn't sure if this was a book.
Yeah, great. Well, I can't thank you both enough, and and Jay, who's not here any longer, for doing this. Work is just phenomenal, and please keep us posted on, new work coming, and Joe with the book, and all of that. And anyway, I could personally help. I would love to help you out. It's just, I mean, both, just the work is, I mean, very inspiring tonight, I have to say. Really inspiring. You guys, I think, really made everyone who was here tonight really appreciate what you did in the most sincere way. So that's always a gift, for another good, successful projections night. So I thank you both for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Jay as well, but he's not here.
So I really
So
enjoyed the pictures. So
yeah, no, thank you, and just keep in touch, and we'll do it again. Wait, Arlene has a question. Arlene raised her hand. Where is she?
No, that was a mistake. I was trying to clap for you because it was such a great presentation.
Arlene, but you got to ask a question now. You're on the spot, dear.
Okay. Well, I noticed that you were hand holding that mirror, and it just seems incredibly impossible to do. So I want to know how you were actually able to take the shot and hold the mirror at the same time.
I can't even tell you how difficult that is. All it looks easy, but it's really physically challenging, and it's
Because
creativity.
I've gone from a Nikon D750 to a D850, and now I'm on a ZF because I can't handhold things anymore. You
Mm.
know, that heavy. So that really looked like a remarkable feat. So
I work out.
you have my admiration.
There you go.
I
So
had
that
another
didn't hurt, Arlene.
I had
Aileen.
another problem. I realized at some point that the hand and the mirror are always coming from the same direction, right? So that gets a little old at some point. So I tried doing the middle or on the side. And then I was thinking, what about shooting with the left hand and holding it in the right hand? And that is completely impossible. I mean, you need a left-hander camera really for it. Often try to hold it up, and so there's certain areas I just can't use. It drives me nuts. But there's a lot of challenges in this. But it wouldn't be fun if it was easy. Really.
Right. Well, the shots are really remarkable. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice job, Aline. Well, folks, again, thanks to everyone for coming in. Again, I always appreciate it. Again, if you get a chance and you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, do that. All the information about Stefan and Joe are in the chat room. But if you don't get it now, you could always reach out to me, and I'll get you all their information. And
And
Hey, Frank, I had a quick question.
yeah,
You may have done this already. Have you ever considered doing a projections show, a real gallery show with all the fantastic people you've had across the years?
when you say that, what do you mean? I don't understand.
A,
Like,
a real printed show of from all the projection people that you've had speak. Have you ever considered that, or have you done that already?
no,
A live show in a real gallery
a live show in a real gallery with their work.
with the work, like one piece from the 100 people you've had, or whatever the number is. I just wondered. I know it's not easy. It's easy for me to say that, but it seems like it'd be an extraordinary show.
Yeah, it would be. So let me know when you have the gallery. Let me know when you have the print. Let me know when you have your framer. Let me know when you have the beverages. Let me know when you have the food. And then let me know. And one thing I can rely on you is for the design. You can design the invitation.
All right. So is next week too soon, or is that?
Frank, that was a wrong answer, Frank. Say yes, right
Yeah, I am all in, to do that. Nothing would make
Hey,
me
Frank,
happy.
next week sounds good.
Yeah, that would be great. And I am sure that, if I sent out a note like that, I can get every photographer to send
Of
a
course.
file that we would print and do a show. I mean, that would be just great. That would be, the projections highlights. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No,
Like a 10-year retrospective, or I don't know how long you've been doing this, but whatever it
yeah.
is.
No, that's a phenomenal idea. In fact, it's Venmo, Frank at thephoto.closer.com, send cash, all donations, everything else, and you could have the photographers there with their books. We could be selling books. You make it like a whole sort of like a little bit of a festival for that, because so many people, speak about putting their books together and have published books. I could see Linda thinking. Where you could really do that. That's a great idea. It's a great idea.
Thanks,
With
Frank.
that, Glenn will no longer be invited to projections, and we really do. I mean, I appreciate all you guys coming in and being with us. And that's you've now stirred my curiosity on how we could pull that together. But with that, good night, everyone, and we'll see you all next time.